like to point out, before I give you all my news items, that while you're all viewing this program, I should be at home in Devon. But I will be thinking of you and the enjoyment you must be getting from our continually growing and ever popular Channel 4 News. I should like to welcome back to the Sun Princess, John Blythe, Chief Radio Officer, and of course my own relief, Tommy Shaw. Also returning with Tommy, his fiancée, Debbie Crusoe. For those of you that don't know, Debbie is one of our bevy of pretty girls to be found in the ship's boutique. A warm welcome also goes out to Miss Lindsay Wallace, returning to the ship, a star of the Starlight, and one of our favourite friends. Now, advice. I'm not normally one to give advice, but here are a few tips I should like to offer you all. When members of the ship's company, officers especially, have friends cruising on board, it's a good idea to point out the difference between our dial and push-button telephone systems. Failure to do so can lead to embarrassing situations. The tip here is, of course, don't call us, we'll call you. You're probably wondering about my replacement officers newscaster, and looking around amongst the ranks of the officers, there seem to be two popular choices, and of course one of them was our doctor, Surgeon John Evans. The other, Rod Claiborne, our first electrical officer. So, without further ado, I suggested that they split this task between them, and the next 5 weeks, Rod Claiborne, first electrical officer, will be giving this officer's news broadcast. The remaining 5 weeks of Alaska cruising, John Evans will be doing this. And this was the end of quite a search, because I had to look around to find someone that had the spare time that I have to give to this program, and these were the two most popular choices.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and we can all look forward to Mr. Rod Claiborne with the officers' news next week. You say it was a hard search, Jerry, and you've come up with the two most popular choices.
Well, I think so. I'm sure they're, I have great confidence in them. I'm sure they're the right kind of material that Channel 4 News is looking for. And
one question, were they pressurised by the large paychecks which you receive each week for this programme?
Well, I wasn't going to say much about paychecks and money, but because in a few days I shall be in the south of France with the officers' wardroom funds. That was a little thing I didn't want to mention, but as you dragged it out of me, I'd like to thank all the officers for this little donation to my holiday fund.
Okay, Jerry, have a nice leave, and as I always say to people who leave Channel 4, your job will be guaranteed when you return to Channel 4 News.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, Colonel, and I will see you all in dry dock and for the Mexico season, carrying on into the Caribbean.
Okay, it's Gerry Dyer with the Officers' News for the last time. He'll be presenting this week. And for news from the sports scene with Cindy Kling, a rather sad time because she's going on 2 weeks vacation, and of course Roger Cheney's coming back, so whether she'll have a job when he comes back, we don't know. Cindy, welcome to your last sports news this week.
Thank you, Colonel. Coming up on Tuesday, July the 22nd, the annual Skagway Marathon, or the Great Skagway Race of 1980, will take place, providing there is sufficient support. The track will be from the foot of the gangway to the first lake, where runners will collect a halfway tag and a fruit refreshment, and then back to the ship. Overall distance is around 2 miles. First, second, and third place finishers will win $40, $20, and $10 respectively. If a suitable ground can be found and the response is good, a cricket match amongst the ship's company will be arranged at Juneau before the end of August. The weekly news and sports theme, which has been posted in the mess room, will continue for the remainder of the season, courtesy of Nick Howard. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Nick for the sports information he provides for me each week.
Well, Cindy, your last sportscast. Have you got anything special lined up for us tonight?
Well, Colonel, since this is my last week as your sportscaster, I decided to do a special on a subject with which many of you are probably not familiar: big game hunting in Alaska. The subject matter in the following film clip may be dangerous to those of you with heart conditions, who are elderly, pregnant, or have some sense of reasonability. Here it is, straight from the wilds of Skagway.
The camera team panicked when this wild creature came on the scene. Cindy, what is this creature that we are about to see?
Well, Colonel, it was a panic because you don't often see a wild beast when you're on location. But here he is, Porcus wildicus, a rare species, but often found around these parts, or so I'm told.
Okay, the camera team has now calmed down, but in a very few moments you'll see something very dramatic. The creature seems to be going away, then all of a sudden he stops. And he's seen us, yes? And this is what we're scared of. He started to come back towards us. Cindy, what happened after this?
Well, this we didn't know, if he was going to charge us or whether he would leave us alone. But then off he turned and away he went.
Well, thank you, Cindy, for that very interesting report on big game hunting, but I hope you don't go out and start hunting pigs, because it is, of course, illegal. Cindy, have a nice couple of weeks off.
Thank you.
And if Roger Cheney, when he comes back, he wants his job back, I have guaranteed it, but there's going to be some place for you on Channel 4.
Thank you,
It's
Colonel.
been Cindy Kling with the sports news for this week. Well, it's that time of the show that we follow Dave Rippoff again to a very unusual location somewhere around the world.
We now live in an age when rape, robbery and murder, indeed all manner of heinous crimes, occur with such regularity that the very foundations of our society are being slowly eroded away, at the same time implanting in every one of us an attitude of apathetical acceptance. It is Channel 4's hope, therefore, that my report tonight, which draws attention to the severe character disorder suffered by one pitiful victim of a particularly horrendous criminal act, will serve to remind us of our moral and legal obligations, without which we must surely return to the Dark Ages. The case in question has its origins here at this house. On a dark, moonless night more than 20 years ago, Myron, the infant son of Mr. and Mrs. Gasflannel, was snatched from the security and comfort of his crib and spirited away. But this was no ordinary abduction, for, you see, Myron's kidnappers was America's symbol of freedom, a bald eagle. As a result of the theft of his son, Mr. Gasflannel quickly drank himself to death. Yet his wife never lost faith. Each day finds her searching the forests that surround her simple homestead, trying to find her little lost treasure. And today, all the long years of unyielding devotion towards the safe recovery of her offspring is about to pay off. For she is now convinced of the exact whereabouts of her missing Myron. Mrs. Gasflannel, what clue brought yourself here?
Mr. Rippoff, how nice to see you. Watch you every Sunday night on the telly. What clue, you ask? Well, I thought I saw a picture of my darling little boy in the album of a bird spotter's guide. Now, I'm not absolutely sure, mind you, but I think it's him.
I see. And Mrs. Gasflannel...
Now, dearie, don't go being so formal. All my friends call me Flan.
Well, Flan, I hope you don't mind us being here on what must be a very emotional occasion for yourself.
Oh, no, Mr. Rippoff. Now, follow me. Oh, Mr. Rippoff, sir, I'm so excited. Myron, it's Mummy, darling. She's found a little cuddly-wuddly. Mummy wants to take you home, Poppet. gas flannel. Mummy won't tell you again. Now come here, at once. Myron, grateful little sod, come down here to me. This instant, Myron. Please be careful, darling. Doesn't Mummy's little candy cooch want to come home with her then? Say something to Mummy, Myron, please! Why did you use his little potty? Oh, God, where did I go wrong?
The tragedy doesn't end here. For since filming this report, Myron's mother has now been gripped by some sort of birdlust and spends all her time over at the local golf course shooting eagles. This has been Dave Rippoff, Channel 4, NBC, back to Colonel Kling in the studios. And remember, always lock your budgie cage.
Thank you, David, and that was a very unusual location this week, and we sometimes wonder if next week you're going to have a better report than the one we saw tonight. It's to the end of another Channel 4 news, but as promised at the start of tonight's programme, we have a very special guest in the studio. That is, of course, our sous chef, Mr. Stuart Bucock. Stuart, welcome to tonight's show.
Welcome, John.
Stuart, the Glacier Bay stew, it's become an institution on board, and I believe that you have the story behind the original Glacier Bay stew.
Yeah, well, John, the original Glacier Bay stew started in 1974 on the Arcadia. Mr. Alec Dawson and myself, we started it on there. And it's every time we've came up to Alaska, whether it's this ship or any other ship, we've always managed to put it on the menu when it's in Glacier Bay.
Well, Stuart, so that means that you were one of the creators of the stew.
That's quite correct, yeah.
Tell us something about your training, because obviously you must have had some special training to have come up with such a marvellous recipe.
Yeah, well, I did my apprenticeship at Claridge's in London. I was there for 2 years.
And was the Glacier Bay stew on the menu at Claridge's?
No, it wasn't even heard of then.
It wasn't even heard of.
And then I was at Quaglino's, another restaurant in the West End of London. I was there for 2 years. And eventually I joined P&O.
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that they've said that when we leave Alaska, does the Glacier Bay stew get put away for another year? They're really insisting that this is going to be carrying on. We call it the Acapulco Bay stew.
No.
Is that in the contract?
No, it's a Glacier Bay stew, goes in hibernation for the following Alaskan season.
Okay, Stuart, it's been very nice having you on the news tonight, and again we'll look forward to the Glacier Bay stew next week.
Thanks very much, John. Thank you.
Well, this brings us to the end of Channel 4 News, but tonight I want to thank a couple of people who have never got a mention on Channel 4 so far. The first one is Malcolm Comley, the cameraman, the man you never see. He was my first cameraman, and Ian Duncan took his place while he was on leave, and now Malcolm's back behind the camera. And also I'd like to thank John Russell and Mr. Ray Saceret for covering up for him so he can be down here taping the show. So this brings us to the end of Channel 4 News for July the 13th. We'll see you next week. Here's a late piece of interesting news from Deputy Captain Townsend. He has informed us that yesterday's disembarkation of passengers was done in record time.